Welcome back, everybody. And today, gold is the discussion. And if we look at having the biggest daily drop since 2020, that's where we're at right now. So if you look at how much it's down 5.63%. And I've mentioned the fact that gold and silver, these trades are, and you can call them trades, I mean, they're investments. But if you're going into this with the mindset of, FOMO, or you're basically like afraid of missing out, the problem is that you already have missed out, right? So you always need to remember that your point of maximum opportunity was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago for that matter. When gold was $1,500 per ounce, you should have been loading the boat. I should have as well, and I did not. But for people who did, I've mentioned the fact that gold is a momentum trade in previous videos. In fact, I just made a video talking about this and the fact that the price of gold is, in fact, a momentum trade. So when it comes to momentum trades, when it comes to the fact that we've had this big run up, not just in gold prices, but also silver prices, and then you have the gold mining and silver mining stocks that are following suit, it's one of those things where you just have to remember that these things are cyclical. And the reason today it seems that the price of gold is retreating after record rally, one of the reasons is the strong dollar. It looks like they are focusing on inflation data and all that kind of stuff. But remember, guys, we've seen a big run up recently in the price of gold. These are record highs, so don't be surprised to see some kind of pullback. Gold prices were on track for their steepest daily fall in 5 years on Tuesday as investors booked profits after expectations of U.S. interest rate cuts and sustained safe haven demand drove the yellow metal to a record high in the previous session. So we were just at a record high. A 5% sell-off really should not come as a surprise. Now, I still believe that the long-term trajectory for gold is going to be that $5,000 level. I think 5,000 is a psychological level. I think that we are going to hit that level eventually. So this downtrend right here, and silver's down more than 6%, by the way, after closing above, I think it was $50 yesterday. So silver, the SLV Silver Trust, as you can see, down 7.72%. But if we actually look at silver spot prices, that's just the ETF. If we look at trading, let's go back to Trading View. I like Trading View. It's a pretty good chart. Silver spot, here we are. $48, down $3.80. But remember, silver is also hitting a record high. So this should come as no surprise. And, if we look at GDX, down 10%. I've been telling you guys this. This is a momentum trade. Like I said, your point of maximum opportunity is when gold's at 1,500 and silver is at $20 an ounce. That's not the case anymore, and so the problem here is that you've had all these people, as typical, piling into the trade, and eventually there's a fool, who is the greater fool. And I'm not saying that this is all going to come crumbling down. I'm just saying you could have been buying silver under $20 an ounce. I could have as well. And you could have been buying gold under $2,000 an ounce. Now, do I recommend you hop into this trade now because I believe gold is going to the moon? Honestly, no. You need to consider this with your own risk tolerance and investing goals. Gold and silver, they've had a big run in the previous couple of years here, really, but it's taken a long time. I mean, it's taken a long time for this to happen. And so I'm just saying, everybody loves to talk about gold because they think it's like the ultimate safe haven asset and that it's going to protect them from the dollar collapse. And we've heard all these things for decades. And, the dollar is worthless and, quantitative easing and printing money, gold's going to the moon. But think about how long it's taken for this move to happen. So I'm very happy for gold and silver investors. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, now you want to buy these ETFs when they're at $95. Like the GDX, look at this run we've had in the past year, 75%. The GDX is up 67%. A stock that I'm invested in, anyway, I've talked about this one on the channel before. And I do own a small portfolio of gold mining companies, not a very large one, but this one's up 50% in the last year, down 9% today. But I mean, this thing, I was talking about this one when it was under $35 a share. And so one point that I always try to stress, When people see moves like this in the gold market, they might start to panic, especially if you're one of the people who bought these things recently. But you always just have to remember that, this is why I always tell people to buy low and sell high. The technicals do matter. The technicals do matter. It's a golden rule in the stock market, obviously, and it sounds like common sense. But if you're buying a stock after it's gone parabolic, you might think you're getting a great deal because everybody else is piling on and the stock's going to the moon and the hype is there and everything feels great and you're just like, man, this is awesome. And then the first few days after, you make money and you're just making money hand over fist. But then what happens is the downtrend starts to happen and then you start to panic. So this is for those individuals who may have been late to the game when it comes to the gold and silver market, and now they're just piling on. Now, like I said, I do believe the technicals and also the psychological level are setting up for a 5,000 plus gold price. And also I'm thinking $100 for silver. I really am long term. I think this is going to happen, but it's just a matter of time and chance. How long can this happen? I mean, look at this run up in the price of gold. So is this just a retracement or is this the beginning of a further move down? 3,000 is going to be that support level in particular right here, $3,000 an ounce. I think is going to be a key support level if we do come back down here. So what could end up happening is that we trade down to 3,000 and then bounce around from 3,000 to 4,000 for a while before making that push up to 5,000 per ounce. And if that's the case, then you should probably expect some similar moves for gold mining stocks, sideways trading action, which if you like, doing covered calls and cash secured puts and you own some of these gold mining stocks, then perhaps, that's what you should focus on. Or if you own the GLD or SLV, you can focus on these things. But it's just something to remember. I kind of felt like this was going to happen eventually. Obviously, like after this big run, I felt like we were going to get a 5% downtrend here. And don't be surprised if we get a 20% downtrend. It's just the nature of the beast. I mean, this is a market like anything else. People can talk all they want about how gold and silver are the ultimate investments and how you should only invest in gold and silver because the dollar is going down and yada, yada, yada. But it's taken a long time for this move to happen. This move has happened, and people who did not load up before 2020 in particular, or like 5 years ago, 2015 even, was a great time to buy. People who did not do those things are now trying to chase this boat. And I think some people are getting burned and they're probably freaking out because they may have heard in the news about how gold and silver are doing so well. Well, by the time you hear about it in the mainstream news, it might be too late, and I'm not saying it is, but it's like, just think about these things, think about these things as an investor. Like you may have saw some piece. I saw a piece yesterday on the news actually talking about how gold and silver are doing well and how the dollar is going down and how this is, and meanwhile, news is coming out now about how the dollar is strengthening. And that's why gold and silver are this is a day after, right? This actually, I just saw this. So it's just an example. Like once you see all this stuff in the media, oh, time to buy gold. Well, perhaps you should have been buying gold before all this news came out, right? So that's my advice to you today is look at your maximum point of opportunity. Gold at $1,500, silver at $15 an ounce would have been fantastic. Silver at 50, gold at 4,000 an ounce, not quite the bargain, right? So just some things to consider here, guys. But yeah, gold is retreating after record rally, on track for biggest daily drop since 2020. What do you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.